I've been looking forward to meeting Trevor Powers for a while. His project is known as Youth Lagoon. I am a fan of this album. I've been a fan of his older records too, and I finally am getting to sit across from him and talk to him as he's about to launch into a session for 98.9 KPNW.
Yes.
Hi, Trevor.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm very good. Thank you.
Nice to meet you in person. We had an awesome online chat.
We did. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that was fun. I feel like we have so many artists that we both love that it was easy to sort of connect on that call.
For sure. Yeah, that was one of those talks. I was chatting with a buddy after our call and saying, you're one of those people that I feel like I could talk to forever, which is pretty rare.
Yeah, I often don't feel that way after I get out of an interview, but I felt like I know this guy. I've known him for a while, it felt like. So
Spirit brothers.
yeah, something like that. First of all, we're kind of stripping things down for you. You are going on tour. Tour starts tomorrow.
Yeah, first show.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Are you nervous?
No, I'm not nervous. I'm chomping at the bit. I would say I'm nervous. I would be nervous if there wasn't so much preparation going into it beforehand.
Good.
Because there's obviously such a direct correlation to the amount of work that you put in on the, before a stone starts rolling down the hill.
Yeah.
And there's been so much preparation that now I'm just excited.
I feel like you've prepped for this for years, right? Because you've
That's very true. Yeah.
You've gotten ready mentally.
Yeah.
You have really taken on almost a new lease on life with this new record and a full tour. Mm-hmm. Why sort of have you evolved to this point that you're ready to tackle this?
That's a tough question. There's so many things at once that I don't ever work with goals in mind or a specific vision. My whole process is trying to be in tune with the present moment, which is tough to do. But when I do it, then it's almost like paths, doors, gates, whatever you want to call it, start opening up.
Okay.
And I try to stay in tune enough to know when to follow those. And this was one of those situations where I've been able to be a little more in tune with myself lately because of some personal shit that I went through health-wise. And I've talked about that a lot in interviews, so I don't know how much I want to go into it because it feels kind of boring to probably boring to myself mostly.
You went through a tough health scare.
It was just a fuckload of confusion and pain and my body feeling like a prison, all this stuff. And so the album's not about that experience by any means, but it did take the blinders off and it woke me up and it gave me much more clarity and focus with not only what I want to do with my music, but who I am as a person and the way that I want to navigate the world. It might sound grandiose, but it really did shake me in a way that I've never been shaken.
Without diving deep into it, was there a threat of you losing your life with the health issue?
It definitely felt like that. I would say losing my life in the sense of me taking my life.
Okay.
That was the closest I've ever come to that kind of escapism or whatever you want to call it, because I did feel so trapped in what was happening in my body and everything felt so inescapable. So that was, to be honest with you, that was, it was very much so an option. But channeling that energy and exercising those demons through music was such a... It's so odd to describe that process as joyous, but it really was, because sometimes when I'm wrestling with those kinds of things and I'm getting certain things out of my system and playing around in those playgrounds, there is so much joy that comes along with that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the whole juxtaposition of life and creativity, that things don't often make sense, and it's all really a paradox. And Idaho Alien, which is one of the tracks that I'm going to be playing that song, specifically the chorus of that song, even though I'm working throughout the verses, I'm working with playing with different characters, fact and fiction, all of that. The chorus coming from the narrator of that song, the narrator is myself, and it makes it to where when I have these moments musically that are very direct, and the curtain opens and I present, this is exactly how it is that I'm feeling. It makes the impact a little bit greater when I am playing with things that aren't like ideas that aren't from myself, as in other characters, because it's like it just gives me more pieces on the chessboard to play with. But the chorus of that track is directly about that experience. Wow. So when I say that the album's not about that, it is very true. But this album definitely would not exist without that. And I don't know if I know actually without a doubt I wouldn't exist in my current form without that experience. Wow. As difficult as it was, if there was a button I could press to make that experience go away, I would never press that button because I'm so thankful. And I'm just grateful for
having experienced that pain.
Yeah, what I was taught through that suffering.
Is this therapy for you?
Without a doubt, yeah. Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah. Tour is going to be like that too. Are you concerned in any way, shape, or form the tour will be challenging for you?
No, I'm just excited. And I think sometimes people can hear heaviness in music and they think that you're going back to these spaces and this must be so fucking hard and all that. But that's not the way my brain works, because like I said, when I build these playgrounds, I love playing in them, and a lot of my favorite creators, whether it be filmmakers or authors or musicians, are people that can go down to those depths and explore there. But often people can't. They don't know how to come up for air. So if you're working in the underbelly, it's hard to know how to resurface and get a fresh,
come back to your
get some fresh air in your lungs. Right. But I've changed a lot as a person to where I feel like I can explore a lot of spaces and not be affected. Not only not be affected by it as in pulling me down, but it transcends my spirit even more.
Okay. That way it's almost like you are a bit of it's almost like tourism, like you're dipping into a different world for a moment.
It is.
Checking it out. Yeah. And then coming back to Trevor.
Yeah. Fucked up tourism. Yeah. Dark tourism.
Fucked up tourism. That's the name of your next album.
Yeah.
Okay. So real quick about Idaho Alien, it's almost to me a kind of bleak picture of Idaho. Mm-hmm. And if I'm remembering our conversation, that was kind of intentional.
Yeah, and I've always had a complex relationship with home, which most people do, so I think that probably resonates with a lot of people.
Yeah.
But Idaho, for me, it was always this place that, talking about wanting to escape, it was a place that I felt like I had to escape because it was what I knew. It was this, I've lived in Idaho since I was 3 years old, and I had this dream of once I graduated from high school, getting out and moving to London or moving to Berlin or moving to New York, all these places that I love so much and they're so dear to me. But when I started being able to travel with music and to experience these places, and then come home, the definition of home changed dramatically. What I got out of home changed dramatically. And a state of overwhelming gratefulness was just there, and it made it to where I was able to really start learning how to pull influence and inspiration not from what's happening around the world, but what's happening on my street or what's happening fucking right next door. Right. There's all these stories. There's all these. I'm surrounded by characters, and trying to, with the whole being present thing, trying to be present to each and every conversation and not dismissing anything, any conversation in a coffee shop or someone that I might meet on a walk through my neighborhood. Always trying to be open-eared and soak it in, because there's always something there.
Did you ever move away for even a minute?
No, I haven't moved. Yeah, I haven't moved. I now I don't feel a need because I travel so much. I travel constantly, and I probably travel 10 times more than a lot of people do that live in, these whatever bigger cities.
Big cities.
And people always think that if they live in LA or New York or Paris, that people want to live in these places, and they almost treat it like I think for a long time there was almost a shame that came from my home being Idaho, because by some people you're treated as less than because you're not from, you don't live where they live. But for me, it's become a badge of honor because my stories are my stories, and I don't let anyone infiltrate what it is that I'm trying to say or do or rub off on me. There's so much exciting music happening in Idaho, but the scene is a lot more disparate, disjointed in a beautiful way, because everyone isn't being informed directly by these music scenes that might be happening in these other places.
Right.
So it's a lot easier for me to stay in tune with what it is that I'm trying to say as an individual and not lose my sense of perspective.
We were just talking a moment ago off mic about your voice. Mm-hmm. And I think you have such a unique intonation, and it's very different, and it really plays into your songwriting and creates a very different mood. Mm-hmm. And you were talking about the fact that you had to get comfortable with that voice.
Yeah,
you weren't always comfortable with your voice.
For sure. Well, I've gotten shit for my voice my whole life. And when I was a kid, I took piano lessons at the age of 6, stopped when I was 12, picked up guitar because I thought it was cooler. No one wants to fucking play piano when they're 13 years old.
Right.
And then I ended up going back to piano when I was about 15 or 16. I still play a little bit of guitar, but back to piano as a foundation for songwriting. And at that same time of going back when I was a teenager to piano, I started singing, writing songs. I was doing that some with guitar, but doing that at such an early age and putting myself out there I would make my own cassettes and give them to friends and whatnot. And there were always people giving me shit with the way I sang. And granted, my voice back then was very fucking bad. It's really, really, really bad. So shouts to anyone who feels like they can't learn how to get better at something, because I feel like I definitely got better at it. But yeah, I don't have a traditionally good voice. With the way that I go about singing, but I'm not interested in having a good voice. I'm interested in having a truthful voice and a voice that's my own.
And it's so unique.
Well, thank you.
It allows you to tell a story differently than whoever would tell it. So to me, it's wonderful, and I think there's so much. And we talked about this too for a minute. There's so much feminine energy in what you do, which I find very interesting. At times, I would listen and think that you might be a different gender when I'm listening to you. Mm-hmm. And that's fucking cool to me. Like that you're able to sort of emote in a way that's not male or female.
Yeah.
I love
I'm
that.
so flattered. Thank you. I really appreciate it. That comes from, I think a lot of people think that it's something that I've stylized,
right?
But it's literally the only way I know how to sing. I can't sing any other way,
right?
So there's no fucking style. It's just that's how I know how to sing.
That's awesome, though.
Yeah.
Well, you've found your rhythm for sure, and I appreciate you coming in to do this session and stripping things down to the way that you wrote them.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I'm really excited to play these, and it's like what we were talking about off air too. Writing these songs in a very specific bare bones skeletal way, and then building up from there. It allowed me to really focus on what it was that the song itself was trying to say, musically and lyrically, but I would say especially lyrically, because I've really fallen in love with the craft of song writing and having lyrics that feel like I could write them down or print them out, put them on a wall, and they already feel complete without music. And that was the biggest challenge for me. And when I'm writing as piano being the main foundation, it forces me to get songs to that point where I feel comfortable and confident and proud of how they are in a form that is bare before I build up. So I'm not using production as a crutch, but rather an enhancer, something that brings something to life rather than smoke and mirrors.
Did you write poetry before? I mean, do you write poetry on the side? Do you write?
No, I wouldn't say I write poetry, but I do write a lot. Okay. I always write my thoughts, and some of it might come out like poetry. My favorite, not that I'm wouldn't consider myself being into poetry, but any kind of poetic expression that hits home for me usually comes in ways that are much more abstract, ways that are disjointed,
fucked up,
like no structure,
right.
All that. So since I'm inspired by that, it's a fun challenge to take that inspiration with the way that things naturally come out of me very fucked up and it doesn't really make sense, and then try to make sense out of it. That's what I've really fallen in love with song structure and how do I make a chorus effective?
Yeah.
For a long time, I was trying to run from the idea of a chorus, but the more that I've steered toward building my own lanes in the road to drive between, it actually makes it to where I have a lot more control and focus over what it is that I'm trying to say, rather than just fucking swerving everywhere.
By having that structure, because Prize Fighter, I mean, that chorus is monster. To me, that's one of the biggest choruses you've ever written.
Oh, thank you.
Talk about Prize Fighter a little bit. What's going on lyrically?
Lyrically, it's the idea of brothers. I grew up with 3 brothers, so our house was a total shit show. In such a good way, though. I mean, it was. I don't want to say. When I say the word violent, I don't mean, by no means was it abusive. Like it was like a beautiful masculine violence where we just push each other off the bed. Like we all have scars from file cabinets,
beat the shit out of each other.
Yeah, and but it was the way that we learned to love and all of that coexisting together. And that always sticks with me, and I have such a great relationship with my brothers. Actually, my older brother lives in Seattle. He's outside right now. So shouts to Bobby. But so having that be something that's so deep in my soul and deep in my psyche with the way that I grew up.
Were you the arty one out of the bunch?
For sure. Yeah, for sure. I hate that term, but yes, I'll accept it.
You were the arty brother.
I'll accept it. Yeah, I was definitely the odd person out.
Yeah.
But yeah, working on Prize Fighter takes all those ideas, but then making a new story out of it. Making a story that it feels close to home, and it feels there's a documentary style to the way that I wrote that song, and very personal. But it also, writing in that kind of way allows me to express things that I've always wanted to express through writing short stories or writing novels, because I haven't done that. But I realize that I can start scratching that itch some with songwriting. I can basically do 2 things at once.
Yeah, that's great. Rabbit is the song that you are going to open the set with here. Mm-hmm. You kind of changed things up at the last minute because of the nature of the instrument, correct? Mm-hmm. I feel like your songs paint very interesting imagery, and we both talked about how we love somebody like Kate Bush who will create a world, and I feel like you do that too. Mm-hmm. All your samples going on and different noises going on. I feel like I'm sort of projected into a different space. Uh-huh. With Rabbit, talk a little bit about that song.
That song, there's a voice that comes in about halfway through the song, and that's my niece, Freya.
Oh.
And she's 6 now. She just recently turned 6. But at the time of me recording that, I think she was 4.5 or maybe 5. She's got the cutest fucking voice in the world. I love her to death. She lives right around the corner from me, 3-minute walk. Her and her sister Junie. But anyways, I picked her up from school one day, and she was talking about her doctor, whose name is Dr. Frisbee, and she just sounded so. There's something in the way that she was talking about something so mundane, like a doctor's appointment, that hit me. Yeah, it just hit me in this way that I was like, I want to work on music. So I took that recording and built this whole song around it that obviously has nothing to do with Freya, but using her voice. I kind of had some of these ideas floating around, and once I got the voice in there, obviously it's very non-musical. It's basically embedded in the second half, part of the second half of the song. It made the song click. It made things make sense that weirdly didn't make sense before her voice got in.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Well, Trevor, thank you very, very much for being a part of this.
Yeah, Marco, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, for writing this record, first of all, is phenomenal.